Well, good afternoon, everyone. I think many of you know my whole purpose with this is what we've done in the past is just have a roundtable, be able to hit on a couple points from our perspective, some of the things that we did during at least the initial part of the year, the fall, and then be able to just hit on some points that you might want to know about or want to ask about. But first of all, to hit on the Final Four, I know many of us hopefully had the opportunity to watch either the women's or the men's Final Four, but it was what I took from it, and I had the pleasure of going down there for meetings for the men's, seeing a lot of things getting back to what we know it used to be. And that's special because with the women's tournament having a sellout, the men's tournament, I believe it was probably as close, but I know the ratings were just as high in all the Final Four games for men's and women's. That shows that we're going in the right direction. With all the challenges we all face, that's a positive that we need to take into account. So I was excited to see that. A couple things from this past fall, just so as we remind ourselves. I know when we talk about successes and everything else, last year we had an unbelievable high. We won more conference championships than anyone in the group of five. And I take a lot of pride in that because with the challenges that we faced, it really goes to show that our staff and our coaches understood what we were trying to do and how we were going to get better. It wasn't going back to where we were. It was going to a direction that we were going to make this department better, and they did. So going to this fall, you start off with soccer. Again, another conference championship. Heather and her staff and those student athletes have done an unbelievable job. You talk about volleyball, first time back into the conference tournament. They won 20 games, fifth in the league. They're moving in the right direction. John's got them really unbelievable program there that he's building. Football team, it wasn't, I think, where we all want to see it, but we all understand where it's going and where it was, and I'm excited because it's hard for people to understand, and I'll say this about basketball as well. It's hard for me to be able to express to everybody the foundation that's being built, and that has been being built since Danny took over the program. The character of the student athletes, the community engagement, everything that's happening. And the recruiting you're starting to see it continue to get better year after year. So I'm excited about where Danny's taking this program, where we're going to continue to go. So I have a really good outlook on where the program is and where it's going. I mean, we all want to compete for championships. I get it, but some programs need a little bit more time, and that's one of those. But he's doing a great job, and really excited about where we're going to be for next year too. Cross country, another conference championship, fourth in NCAA's. Unbelievable success. And then you got men's and women's basketball. Women's basketball, Bradbury has really established a good presence when you talk about what he's trying to do with that program, with those student athletes. And, last year, conference championship, this year we competed again for one. And, it's a standard now. He's established a standard, and we're excited about it. And, we're gonna take that next jump to the NCAA's, and he's doing everything he can to help to get there, and I am as well. Men's basketball, everybody will see, and I think those who went saw a different team out there, saw a team that competed. And it was a team that needed a lot of, again, work behind the scenes. And Coach Patino and his staff have done a tremendous job. We had a lot of hurdles this year that we had to overcome. But when you look at it and you say, 13 wins, I think that's what it was, right? 13 wins. The previous year we had 3 because 2 of those games were given to us. So it's pretty darn good response. Now, is it where we want to be? No, he knows that. That's not where he wants to be. That's not where I want to be. But again, you look at what we got coming back, what's been established, what the way these kids work and play. I'm excited. So, again, want to do a quick recap of those sports because at this point, I don't see any coaching changes. By the way, because I know that you guys like all those coaching changes that I like to do here and there. I don't see myself doing any. Spring sports, we got some good things started. Baseball got a whole new coaching staff there, and again, it's hard for everybody to understand what's happening behind the scenes. But he's doing an unbelievable job getting that program where we're going to see it consistently competing, where Ray had it years ago. And so I'm really, really excited about that. And several others, tennis, golf, they're all doing great. Outdoor track started up. So, a lot of great things happening. And then within the department, before we get into the nitty-gritty about the college athletics and some other things that are on your mind, I want to hit on a couple points. Fundraising, because this is a big key for us, as we all know. We get our budget is challenged more than anybody else in the country. I think at times, just because we're so dependent on our self-generated funds. And if you think about what we've been able to do in fundraising this year, just so you guys have some facts, in multiple categories, major gifts, everything else, it's going to be a 5-year high. So the highest fundraising we've ever done over the last 5 years, it's happening today where we are. We've set records in overall fundraising. We set an overall record in the last 10 years. So we've been able to garner the trust back of our fan base. And it was a big, you guys all, ladies, and heard me say this when I first arrived here. That was a big quest for me. I wanted to do what I could to try to earn that trust back, and I think we have. And our fundraising has shown, because it goes right back to our student athletes. And then when you talk about our scholarship fund and the endowments that we've established, not just scholarship endowments that we've several, but operational endowments, men's basketball, football, baseball, track and field. That's a program changer. That's going to change this program, not just for today, but for the future of what UNM athletics is. And, if we would have had some of these, in place when I arrived, we'd be a lot further along. But you know what? We're here, and we're going to try to make the best of it, and we're excited about where we are. So just a couple things I wanted to hit on. And then I'll just touch on this, health protocols. I know many of those are still on the table. We still are approaching it very similar to what we did last year. There's still possibilities. Things may change tomorrow. And so we're ready to do that. We're still continuing to work with our student athletes on a day-to-day basis. Yes, we've the elimination of the masks and some of the other things have aided some of the practices and everything else. But at the end of the day, everything we're doing is going to make sure that the health and the safety of our student athletes is there. So nothing is changing at this point. We still have protocols within the NCAA and the Mountain West that we have to follow, so we will continue to do so. But our student athletes are aware of our expectations and following through with everything there. And so besides that, I'll get, I think what everybody might want to at some point talk about is, college athletics. It has been going through a huge change. And those that have been around college athletics for a long time understand that it's not unusual for college athletics to go through different things. What's unusual about it is the abundance of things that we're dealing with today, all at one time. You talk about the transformation of the NCAA. Okay, that's a big one. Then you talk about the realignment, the NIL, social unrest, transfer portal. When you talk NIL, you got collectives and everything else associated with it. Throw that on top of having to deal with COVID. So there's a lot transpiring right now within the NCAA. I can give you some of my thoughts on some of those things. I'll ask you guys could ask some questions regarding any of those. I'll be happy to answer. But from our perspective, the biggest thing is, as we go through all these different changes, is where are we putting the University of New Mexico? Where is the Mountain West aligned when we move forward with all our sports? Those are the big questions that we're trying to address. And then understanding the transfer and the NIL and everything else, how does it benefit us without us doing some work? Because we can when it comes to the NIL. So working with legislators, I was just in Washington, D.C. a week ago talking to some of our delegates up there because of the NIL and other things, just making sure that we do everything we can to put our student athletes in the best position we could. So with that being said, I'll hit on a couple little things at the end, but I'll open it up. And ladies, guys, ask away, please. Don't hesitate.
Let's say you have a student athlete that says, I'm done with the vaccines.
Yep.
I do not want to get a booster. I got your vaccine when I was supposed to, but I'm not doing it again. What is your approach to that student athlete?
Well, we still have requirements by the institution. The institution still mandates that everybody that's a student here has to be fully vaccinated, boosted. So if they don't have that, then we have to cross that bridge. And we haven't had to deal with a student athlete in that perspective, but I know the institution has on the other side of it. So it will be one of those conversations that they have to understand. Look, if it gets to that point in the current year that we're in, that's part of the expectations that we live under. And if you don't want to be here because you don't feel that your reasons and the university doesn't feel like one of the reasons, if it's medical, if it's religious, doesn't meet that criteria, then unfortunately, then New Mexico is not the place for you. And that's a decision by the institution and as well, and we have to abide by it. Will it be in place next year? I don't know. And that's what I've told our coaches. I had a meeting last week with them, and I told them the same thing. I said, guys, ladies, I don't know if this is going to be what we expect it to be next year. But at this point, we have to continue to operate the way it is. And so if there is any student athlete or any individual coaches or staff members that are in that place, let us know, because we have to have that conversation now and not wait till the end of the semester. So
Your bottom line is that if that student athlete does not want to get that vaccine, they need to be playing someplace else.
at this point, that's the requirement of the institution. And unless the institution gives them the ability to stay here because of whatever their explanation is that they choose not to, then that will be the end result. I mean, we're going to try to work with them as much as possible. Right now, I think again, since this started in the fall, we haven't had that situation arise, because many of our student athletes know that we've been having these conversations leading up to it. And so I feel fortunate that I'm not going to leave something for chance. So my whole thing is, let's have those conversations in advance, and we've continued to have them throughout the season. So no one's caught blindsided, no one's caught unaware of what the situation is. Incoming recruits, we tell them at this point, if things don't change, that's what you might have to anticipate. But understand, I do feel that we're going to get to a place where that won't be a requirement.
So with that,
Yes.
what is the standard vaccinated and how many boosters as we sit here right now?
Just one booster.
Okay.
Yeah.
So-
Just fully vaccinated means basically boosted in the eyes of the university.
Hey, Eddie, as the football program continues to get better, are you guys anticipating adding some more big name schools to the schedule and stuff like that? Are we going to see anything change with the schedule?
No, I don't think immediately, like for the upcoming year or the following one after that, I don't think you're going to see anything huge, because I think most of those contracts are already in place. To be honest with you, I'm working on 27, 26, 27, and 28 and 9 and 30, like way down the line. So most of the institutions we're working with, we're looking at home and homes. We're looking at the guaranteed games. We're also looking at the Power Fives and trying to talk to them. There's still a little bit of a change right now going on with the Power Five and some of the realignment and everything else. So, we were working with BYU on a potential home and home, and unfortunately, because of their now affiliation with the Big 12, they're going to have to look at opening up some of their schedules around. So, unfortunately, it's not going to be at this point, but we're still having dialogue with them, and as well as many others.
And when you talk about the BYU thing, how far down the road is that? Is that way down the road?
Actually, that one would have been 24, right? 24, yeah. It was gonna 24, 20. Well, no. At this point, they can't. They have to basically look at their schedule and kind of, I don't want to say blow it up, but try to open it up and give the conference, because they have to fill in the conference schedule first and foremost. And you got to remember, all the games were all basically some kind of home and homes or some other deal. So they're trying to figure out how they can manage some of these with the contractual obligations. We didn't have anything written down in contract yet, so that gives them more flexibility to just push us to the side until they figure out what's in the right place for them.
But it's still on the table.
Everything's still on the table. I mean, we're still having conversations with everybody. I don't put anything off. I mean, every institution, I try to have dialogue. Even if they tell me no, it doesn't mean I'm going to stop. I'm going to come back a month from now or a year from now and say, hey, what about this? So yeah, no, we always have open dialogue, and that's part of the relationships that myself and Danny has with their football coach, I have with their ADs, and we keep that open dialogue.
Do you have any updates on the football workout facility, construction, when
absolutely.
it's projected to be completed?
Projected to be completed is after next, I'd say towards the end of next fall. Again, I'm very hesitant to say a specific date, because I came from a state where I oversaw projects and it rained like every other day. So we lost a lot of days. Here it's not like that, but I don't want to jinx myself. But no, they're moving. They're doing a lot of infrastructure work right now, just kind of checking out all the underground utilities and everything else. We're going to actually have a groundbreaking. Frank, where's your form that you gave me? I wrote it down and I gave it back. Apologize. Groundbreaking is the 13th. So April, so we'll give you guys one of these so you know. April 13th, we're going to do an actual groundbreaking out there. Officially. So we'll do the dog and pony show and have everybody out there, and but they're already doing some work, infrastructure work, just to kind of get ahead as much as they can, and we'll work around them as far as football season and everything else for next year.
Speaking of construction, with the capital overlay that you
Yeah.
guys have, is that money going to go towards the pit across the street so that you guys can start hosting regional events again? Like you said, the Final Four was a big event over there. Why can't we have it here?
All right, so I'll answer that in two parts, if you don't mind. First part is capital outlay. This year, we were very fortunate to receive right a little bit less than $6.1 million in capital outlay. And that's a litany of different projects, everything from replacing the lights in the football stadium to addressing needs within the pit. There's a whole new track. We're going to redo the whole track out there because it's over 15 years old, that surface is. That, as you know, it hosts everything from the state high schools, the senior games, the Special Olympics. It's one of the most used tracks in the state. So that was a big project for us. So we were fortunate to receive a considerable amount of money from the state legislature. Many of those projects are being teed up as we speak to get going as fast as we can once the money is received sometime around July 1st. But we are pushing forward to get those projects going. In respect to the second part of that, which is the pit, we do typically receive some money almost every year through capital outlay for the pit for an array of different things. Anything from HVAC, or it might be one year it may be upgrades to technology. So there's a litany of different things that we utilize it for. When it comes to the NCAA, and I think this is a question, I think we were talking about it, Van, you and I, the problem that's hard for everyone to understand is the NCAA Final Four, the NCAA regionals have changed dramatically. If you had a chance to watch any of their games, how they lay it out now, they're much bigger arenas. Some of those arenas that are on a college campus or used by a college team have made some of those revisions prior to this happening, these games happening. For us to be able to do that, it's going to take a considerable amount of work. The dollars associated with it, I couldn't tell you right now because again, there's several different areas that we would have to address. But I think you talk about the area around the court. That would be either removing seats or just honestly redesigning some of the current area of what it is. What makes the pit so special? Right on top of you, having our fans and everybody else, that's not going to be available if we fulfill the expectations of the NCAA. Back of house, things like locker rooms, meeting rooms. There's a lot more that goes on now for regionals, for Final Fours, and everything else that honestly our facility's not conducive for at this point. We have some areas that are really nice and they would be great for sponsorships and this but the fact is some of the behind the scenes, some of the functionality is not where it needs to be. And then the last thing is hosting a Final Four is unrealistic anymore for men's because when you see a game, if you saw it, 70-something thousand. Yeah. I'm sorry, I love the pit, but we're not getting 74,000 people in there. And so is there a chance to get a women's maybe one day? I don't know. That might be a possibility. But their expectations, the women's, is very similar to the men's as far as the layouts, the requirements, and everything else. The only thing that's different is they might not play in a football stadium. They might play in more of an NBA arena. So the number, we might be able to get the attendance close to it. I mean, they had 18,000, I think. Yeah. So even that's going to be challenging. So my hope and my expectation with my staff is continue to have that dialogue with the NCAA, continue to see what can be modified, how we can find a way to maybe host either men's or women's early rounds, however that may be. So we got some work ahead of us. It's not, I can't sit here today and tell you that we could do X, Y, and Z and it's done tomorrow. It's going to take a commitment by the institution, maybe even the state, to help us financially get to where we need to be to actually make it happen. And if we do that, it's literally going to be almost a cut and paste. Unfortunately, when they did some of the changes that were done to the pit, some of them were nice, but during that time, there was a lot of changes happening within the NCAA. And I don't know if that communication ultimately was ever seen before the project came to life. So I don't know if that answered it.
So this year's capital overlay is not necessarily going towards renovating the pit for that goal
No, sir.
specifically?
No, sir.
More
No, sir.
towards the-
No, no, sir. Well, it's again, there's things like 7 different projects. I think in the pit, we had some things that were behind the scenes stuff, things within the team areas that have not been addressed in probably 5 to 10 years. Restrooms, other areas that just need to be upgraded and enhanced. So yeah. No, I think we got 300,000 for the pit. We won't be able to do much with that, unfortunately.
Speaking of the pit, the fact that the PCR of the
PBR.
came in,
Mm-hmm.
took over your arena, didn't set real well with your women's program. Is there a way to move that thing out of basketball season?
Yeah. So again, I've had offline conversation with some of you about this, and I think you need to understand the history before we talk about if it can be moved. So when I first arrived here, it was the week following the state championships. So we would be at the Mountain West tournament. That's when the state basketball championships were being played here at the pit. The following week was PBR. So then if we wanted to host, at the time we had to squeeze it in like one day for the first round and then not see it again till like the third or fourth round, like late. So, and usually, and I'll talk about the WNIT process so everyone understands why that's part of the equation, is my number one focus was, look, we got to give our teams, men and women, a chance to at least have the early rounds, because I know we can host those early rounds. I knew the men were going more to a central location for the NIT portion of theirs, because they're now overseen by the NCAA. So I knew we could get those first early rounds. So we worked with the PBR. Now the PBR also changed their format. They used to their championships used to be in October, I think. Now they're in May. So they've compressed their schedule quite a bit and are trying to get every event that they can within that time span. We told them there was no way that we were going to allow it to be the week that it used to be. So we worked with them and pushed it back 2 weeks. That gave me an ability to at least host some events, depending men or women, if they do come. So we have worked to push it back to help the needs of our student athletes and our coaches. Now, the way the WNIT works is it's a bid process. Just kind of like an MT or something like that. I mean, you put in a bid, and if you can show them, and NCAA has a bid process like this, it's similar in baseball and some of the other sports, that if you can generate a certain amount of revenue above and beyond that they're going to be able to recoup and take as part of their portion of this, then that's how you can win a bid. Now, we're fortunate because we have a very strong fan base on both men's and women's. The other side of that is we can host. If we do our part, we can host the first couple rounds, maybe even the third round. We can host in Johnson Gym. It's not the pit. I get it. But we put a bid for every one of the rounds that we were able to compete against. The other side of this is you have Power Fives that are also bidding on this. So you had Oregon State, you had UCLA, you had some of these others. They got a bigger pocketbook. If they choose to throw in a couple extra dollars in that category, the likelihood is we're not going to win that bid. It doesn't matter if we are a bigger seed or not. So there's a lot of different factors that go into play. And for me to say that I'm going to make a decision that's in the betterment of the entire department when it comes to the PBR is I've done what we could. I pushed it back, and coaches know this. And at this point, I'm not going to there's no way I could get it off that month. PBR is not going to push it back any further because then it affects them. Their next move is you probably will go somewhere else. So I lose the chance of generating anywhere between $200,000 and $300,000 off this event for the betterment of this department for a possibility that we might host. Look, my goal is I think you've all heard me say, is to compete for for conference championships and NCAA tournaments. Mike knows that. That's Mike's as well. And that's our men's coach as well. So he and I understand his frustration probably was more so the challenges of getting from one location to another wasn't easy to get to Oregon State in the time that we had to do it. And so I think that was more of his frustration than anything else. But this PBR didn't happen yesterday. This contract's been in place. And so all our coaches, especially our men and women, understand that typical time of year. But again, I keep working with Mike and with Richard that if we do have to compete in the WNIT or the NIT, we got to do what we can. But our goal is the NCAA, and that's theirs as well. That's what our fans expect. We all want to play postseason, but again, I also got to make sure that we do our part across the board.
Eddie, just your opinion, do you think there's going to be another round of conference shuffling coming up, or do you think
It's happening already. I mean, you see it with the smaller conferences. They're still reshuffling right now. I can't tell you that it's going to be one conference or another. I think this is going to continue to evolve. I think you're seeing it with the smaller schools and some of these other conferences moving and jumping. You got Division II schools becoming Division I because they see this hope of the money that's associated with it. So there's a lot of changes happening right now. I don't see it. I don't want to see it slowing down, but I do believe there's still going to be some other changes that happen between now and within the next 10 years. I mean, easily, but probably even much shorter timeline than that.
And do you anticipate anybody reaching out to you guys because of the television market or
Sure.
anything like that here?
Well, my number one focus is to get our athletic department and all our teams, our coaches, our staff, our fundraising, our budgets, everything where they need to be. If we do that, then we're in the consideration. Right now, where we currently stand, we're not. And I don't shy away from it. I don't pretend that it's not there. We have our work to do. We have to win. We have to be successful in some of these sports like football and men's basketball and women's basketball, and then be able to show that fundraising wise, the investment is in athletics by the university, by the state. Our donors have stepped up. They stepped up immensely. Our government, our state officials have helped us immensely. Our university has helped us. But to take that next leap, if you go back in history and you look at Utah, you look at TCU, and you look at those teams that were once in this league that made that jump, what was the investment? It wasn't just in athletics. It wasn't in the institution. Utah, if you go back, Utah invested just as much in the institution to make it a top-tier academic institution as it did for the athletics. And so for us, we have to do our part. We have to help enrollment. As an athletic department, it is our role to make sure we do our job and we do it well so that there's not bad publicity or this or that we've put out there because of things that just weren't right. And so if we do that, that should help enrollment. We win, that should help enrollment. So all that helps the institution, which ultimately will help us. So I do think there's some work to do. I don't think it's impossible by all means. I mean, the winning the sixth champion, how many? Six, right? Six last year, total of 9 in total in that calendar year, right? 9?
Yep.
9 in a total calendar year. When you look at all that and say, okay, we've been able to get it done and get it done well. Now now for us, we need to continue to do what we can so that we can put ourselves in that conversation to be in a Power 5 conference.
And you mentioned that you were in D.C.
Yes, sir.
talking to state reps about NIL. How much direction is there right now? Because it seemed like we jumped into this with really not much of a plan or thoughts of what it would look like. So as far as getting towards that legislation, where are we in that process from who you talk based on?
Well, I think it goes back to two things. One is I went up there, pre-scheduled event to go up there to meet with some of them prior to the hearings for the new Supreme Court. So I got there that week. So many minds were in different places, not on me, but I was fortunate to get an opportunity to speak to some of them. And my conversation with them is I need to be more informative because I can't ask them to understand every ounce of everything we just talked about, all the different changes, and then be able to go and represent not just our institution, but the state and college athletics in a position. So Ben Ray Lujan was unbelievable in understanding, and I do see him possibly being a good ally and a resource. My biggest thing to them at the end of the day was utilize me in whatever way you can to provide you the insight, the information. I'm fortunate to sit on the Lead One Executive Committee, which is it oversees all the FBS ADs, and to sit as the only group of 5 AD on that group is important. It's an important responsibility for me, and it allows me to hear things not just that are being talked nationally, but just some things that even behind the scenes that we need to know. So as much as I can, I want to be a resource to them, to our state, And I'm not going to have all the answers, but I know enough people in this business that I can probably touch base with somebody here or there that try to get some answers. Maybe not be the right answer, but it might be some answers that help us get to where we're trying to get to.
Is the transfer portal out of control?
What is out of control to you?
2,000 student athletes?
I think you need I think it's surprised a lot of us. I think we all understood the reason behind it, or to get to where it is today, to allow the student athletes to have that availability to make those moves. And I think COVID kind of gave it even more of a presence to say, look, there's challenges. You have to be able to give them some flexibility. The problem with it, there's probably a lot more than I think. Coaches will have their concerns. I have more of a concern when it comes to the academics, the APR, how all that relates to us. That if a student athlete leaves today because he's transferring, that his reason for leaving wasn't a bad experience. It was maybe they want to better themselves. So for me, the focus more than anything else, what I can control is what's happening. Why are those individuals leaving? We've seen the benefit on both sides. I've seen the benefit help us. I've seen some of our kids that have excelled here in some of the other sports and potentially have gone on to a bigger school by conference or by name within that sport, and they've excelled. So as long as I want them to have the best experience they can. But I also want I want us to have stability. I want our fans to understand it, but I know that's not reality. I know the transfer portal is going to be part of the equation for football, basketball, and every other sport. So we have to embrace it as much as we can while it's here the way it is until something changes. And I don't know what's going to change. I think I know there's a lot of conversations being had right now, and there will continue to be more with the transformation and of what happens with the NCAA and everything else. But I can sit here and tell you some goods and some bads as far as experiences that we've had. But at the same time, you have to understand every one of those transfers most likely has a good reason for their transferring. Most of them do. I mean, you see coaches changing, you see kids want to leave. The old narrative of coaches running off players, this and that, is it happening? Sure. It's still happening in places. We know it is. But you also have kids that, you know what, this is just not for them. They want to get closer to home. Different things happen. And that's part of this, and people lump everything together as one.
That being said, do you, and most of us in this room
Sure.
remember the bad, do you need to keep your finger on the pulse of who your coaches are trying to bring in?
I feel extremely confident in my coaches that we have today, that they understand the expectations, the responsibilities, and that I will hold them accountable for decisions that they make. And so I trust them because that conversation, and again, it's part of it is building trust with every one of your coaches. We have some great coaches. They get it. They understand what it means to bring a student athlete here and what it does. And if you bring one for 1 year, they're still being held to the same standards as everyone else. And so I want to win, but not at all cost. And I think that's the one thing that's lost, that people will just do it just because they feel like they have to win just to get to. No, we'll get there. We'll get there. But if it's going to destroy the culture, the foundation of a team, then I'm not supportive of that. And they know it, so they understand what. And again, I have great coaches that don't have to worry about that because they have their own expectations of who they're trying to bring in and what the character of those young men or women are like.
You guys have anything special for? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. You go.
Look, football's coming up, and you know how the attention span is not the best for people nowadays. Do you have any special things that you're going to do to get people here or to keep their focus?
Yes, so we're working. We've watched. One of the things that I ask our staff to do is watch what's happening around us. So we watch other schools, how they've conducted their football marketing, basketball marketing, everything else. I don't care what sport it is. It could be soccer, it could be track and field, it could be softball. Whatever it is, what are they doing that's creative? What are they doing that we could implement here? And let's also be creative and come up with new ideas. We have the Isotopes for many years have done some great promotions and everything else. And why aren't we listening and watching what others do? United's doing some things as well. Why not? So we have to do our part, and we have been. And I'm not going to put the cart before the horse on this one, because I know our staff's working on some things for this upcoming year. But yes, we are trying to do things. We're trying to push the needle in the right direction to help our fans have a wonderful experience, entice them to come out. With that being said, just so everyone understands, we'll give you this information, but our football tickets will go on sale tomorrow, April 6th. So renewals, and we'll have all this information for you here, but we're starting to push out tickets. We want to get tickets out there. We want to get as many as we can, and soon after that, you're going to see basketball back out there. So that's our big push.
How much communication do you have with the collectives? Like the collective that's in place here, is it even a well-established one?
Well, I believe from what we have come to be made aware of, that yes, it is being well established. They're going through all the steps necessary to establish themselves as a 501c3, whatever the heck they are. We have had dialogue with them prior to this, just to understand their expectations, understand our concern, understand what we're doing to help educate our student athletes, trying to make sure that we can't direct them. We can't tell them what to do. But we want to make sure they understand what our expectations are, what we're trying to go, where the program is trying to be, what we're not going to. I guess at the end of the day, I mean, we're going to want them to do things the right way, but it's them. It's their own business, and we have to trust as much as we can, like every other school's doing with their collectives, is that it's being done and done right.
Two follow-ups, and one is this being an outside entity that can get you guys into NCAA trouble through the athlete by steering them in the wrong direction. What role should university and UNM specifically, obviously, have in should there be one liaison to this collective kind of overseeing it and making sure they're not violating any rules?
I think it goes beyond the collective. I think when you start talking NIL, I think there's a lot of things that need to be done to address how to go about this the right way. Nobody, myself, no AD out there is basically saying we don't want our student athletes to benefit and have the best opportunity. That's not what this is about. But I just like everything else has evolved, there's people out there that are not doing things the right way. And what we're trying to do is steer our student athletes to make sure that they stay away from those individuals. So we properly educate them in everything we can in advance. We give them every resource and tool, from learning and understand contracts to understanding the space they're trying to get into. If it's sponsorship, if it's through the social media world, everything we can, we're going to try to put in front of them so that it educates them. At the end of the day, there's people out there that are not doing things right. And so what we're trying to do is educate them enough that if you get to this point, you protected yourself, so that, because I can't tell one of our student athletes, hey, don't go speak to this guy. They're going to make that decision on their own. And hopefully they're smart enough or they take the resources that we've provided to be able to utilize that so that they can be on the right side of that however it all transpires. So I do believe more communication is necessary. I do believe there has to be some more involvement with certain aspects of this, the NIL. Understanding if Jeff Grammer's got to deal with, I don't know, taco guy or whatever. I know tacos in general. All right. So my whole thing is I don't need to know what you're doing or how you're doing it. It's more so understanding that we've done everything we can, that those collectives and everything else, that there is better communication, because nobody wants people out there doing or cheating, because the easy thing to do is say, aha, school X, Y, and Z are doing this, and we know they're doing it like you're not supposed to be. We don't know that. I can't answer that. I can't even figure it. I can't call this school and say, hey, do you know if that's happening? They're going to say, I don't know. So I do think there's some gray areas that we need to have a little more clarity on, that would give the student athletes the best ability, the institutions the best ability, because the last thing I want is the University of New Mexico to be put on probation or anything else because somebody just didn't understand something. If we can do a better job communicating and educating, then at the end of the day, that's all we can ask for.
Do all 11 full members of the Mountain West have a collective of some sort at this point?
I don't think all do, but I think all are probably in the process of having communication with somebody or something about it. So yeah, I do believe they're all having some kind of dialogue with some people.
And one more quick one, since the
Yeah.
collectives are basically comprised of people that would be in the Lobo Club or donating to you guys anyway for the most part, have you had any concerns or experience yet that they're pulling back from you guys to give more to the collective?
You know, that was one of the things that they asked us. What was my biggest concern? Was our donor base reallocating some of their funds from one area to the collective. And I can't stop them. It's just a concern of mine. And so, of course, if I had my desires that everybody who works with the collective of the donors or whoever, supporters of theirs, puts money in there, that this is above and beyond what they do for the Lobos. And that's what I've told our donors, our Lobo Club, that, look, you want to be a part of that, that's your freedom. You want to move money from this pot to that pot, that's your freedom. The only thing we would ask is that you understand that if this pot has to deal with the operations of our team, and that maybe that's an extra trip, flight trip, that instead of having to take a bus or something else, that we can help our student athletes be able to get back to class in time and everything else, that you understand that that's what it's going for. Because that, if I don't have those funds for that, guess what? Unless something miraculously happens or some new money comes in, that's going to be a loss of in operations financially. So they've, at least the Lobo Club, our donors, our executive committee, understands that is my desire, my hope. But the reality is I can't. I don't know.
Real quick,
Yes, sir.
getting back to the whole
Yeah.
NCAA regional
Yeah, yeah.
opportunities. Okay, so you mentioned about, upgrades needed to be made in the team areas and all that kind of stuff, probably the media too.
Yep.
Forget
that, but yes.
Also mentioned that, if, in order to comply, so to speak, there would have to be changes done. So bottom line is, as the current pit floor stands, and this is speculation, like all the time people have talked about this, okay? Forgetting the media rooms and all that stuff, the area where the NCAA would want to put a court for a regional would not work in the current conditions now. Is that correct or not?
Current configuration, the way it stands today, that does not meet the standards of the NCAA bid process.
The court or just the whole thing?
Yeah, the whole floor setup, because
setup.
I think that's what needs to be understood. The court itself also requires a lot more
Understood.
space around it
Right.
for other things. But when you talk about the floor space, and that is press row,
Right.
or our center, whatever team sitting area, all that, everything that comprises that floor, we don't have right now the ability to give them exactly what they're asking for.
And when you went back to like how coincidentally this came about the same time of the renovations
Yep.
type stuff. So in other words, like the project you're talking about is much different than like removing bleachers. It would be doing like removing a lot of concrete, because anybody that goes down to the pit floor realizes there is huge concrete right up into the pretty much the edge. So I mean, that's the kind of project that would be needed to accommodate even just that one element of the whole thing, correct?
You are correct. I think, and I'm not going to say across the whole thing, there's going to be changes so this section, there's going to be some considerable changes in certain areas that concrete will have to change. So instead of having a row of seats, now it might go further back.
Right.
Now, could we temporarily add some risers and some seats there for the future so that we can still have what we look at today? Yeah, probably so. But all those changes require significant projects.
Right.
This is inconveniencing our teams and everything else. 'Cause, I mean, this is not going to happen tomorrow. This is going to be something that's going to have to be, honestly, it's going to take some time to get it done right. And as I said earlier, I'm looking into it, but I'm not putting all my eggs in that basket right now because it's a pretty good financial investment. And so it's not just investing into the project, it's investing into what we want it to look like after the NCAAs are gone. Because the court, again, we want our fans as close to the court as possible. Last thing I want to do is open it up to give the NCAA and then have our fans so far pushed back. So if we can do it, can we put some retractable seats, things that would allow us to still get them closer for our games, and then be able to do what we need for other things.
And would the overhead scoreboard just be totally out of the question considering the status of the roof?
It is extremely unlikely that we will be able to add a center hung with the current support structure of the roof. That makes, I'm trying to say really politically correct, I guess you'd say.
The amount of money.
It is still part of overall, as I tell my staff, I want to know what it costs. So get somebody in here, tell me what it is. I'm not asking for the full blown out project where somebody designs this from top to bottom, but there's enough individuals in this business that understand what it will cost to have to modify that roof and be able to give us a center hung that we would like. It's not, you don't have to have a center hung, but it is one of those hopefuls that the NCAA has. I think I will tell you this, within the next year, one of the projects that we will be doing would be to upgrade our video boards. They're getting to their end of their lifespan. And so we are looking at the cost, how to do it, maybe some partnerships with our multimedia rights. So there's different avenues without just saying we need X by a specific group.
One last question from me.
Okay.
Any naming rights in play for any of your facilities right now?
I will never turn down a naming right opportunity. But I will tell you this, the conversations that we're having with certain individuals are just being had right now. I don't want to approach anything without having it thought through and kind of vetted by many different groups. One thing that I've told anyone and everyone who will listen or is interested in naming rights, that we will have a different model when it comes to the payment schedule, how things are done, and that certain funding will be upfront. Because what I don't want to do is allow, if a decision is ever made that a group is not willing to continue with the partnership, that at least we're in a position that within the next year or two, looking out, if someone says, we got to go, well, that's fine. Well, I got 2 years to be able to get this and get somebody else back in here, or I can modify, because budgets are they're made in advance. So to know that I'm not going to have a specific amount of money that upcoming year and then not be able to turn around and find a replacement really puts us in a really difficult place. So different ways, different modeling ways that we would do it. And we've had great conversations with some, but right now, as I've told them, until we get some other things kind of squared away, I don't want to put the cart before the horse.
Eddie, you touched on fundraising. I'm
Yeah.
curious, the 5-year high that you mentioned, how does that impact your annual budget? Does it allow you to get away from just treading water and do things that you couldn't do before?
So many of you that have dissected our budget, probably more than I have, realize that we're significantly underfunded. And that started happening about probably 8 to 10 years ago, where they started cutting back in budget of the teams and the operations and telling the coaches, you got to go fundraise more. You got to go fundraise more. So when I got here, we had our sport enhancements, which is each of their independent groups were significantly funding their operations, their travel, their food. Our donors were basically giving for operations, where other schools, pretty much everybody in our league, is either fully funded or pretty close to being fully funded. We're not even halfway in some sports. When I first arrived here, our women's soccer team went to the NCAA. That wasn't in their budget. So if they went to, if they went to conference tournament, that wasn't budgeted for them because they didn't have the money. So if I asked my coaches to go to the conference tournament, be conference champions, and go to the NCAA tournament, but I'm not going to give you the money to do it, you got to go fundraise. That's just not right. So we have gotten the budgets in the travel in many of the areas closer to where they need to be. What makes this so desirable or so enjoyable to see where our fundraising is because we've been able to increase our fundraising, increase our budgets at the same time by the institution, but also continue to have the sport enhancements at the level where they were back then. So everything is kind of moving in the right direction. Or again, we're still far away from. We asked the state, one of the requests for the state this past year was to get our budgets at just the average of the Mountain West. What we needed about $2.5 million. We went and asked for $2 million, knowing because as the state was looking at this that they were going to try to divvy up for other NMSU and some other schools as well. And then right before the session started, that was removed. So it went from needing 2.5, 5 really, but 2.5 was the original request to 2 million, then to 0. We ultimately came out with $1.5 million. And that was a lot of conversations, a lot of showing legislators, this is what our numbers are, this is what's happening. And what's really hurting us, which is another part of the budget equation, and many of you heard me say, so I apologize for kind of repeating myself here, but every raise that's mandated by the state or by the institution, every tuition increase, every fee increase, anything like that, we don't get a single penny for from the state or the institution. So whereas if UNM has to give raises to their to a professor, faculty, it's great. They might not be worried about the tuition on the other side because that's not affecting them. That affects our budget because we pay for all the student athletes' scholarships. So it's basically a double whammy or a triple whammy in some cases where it's unfunded mandates that we don't have the ability to fund. So when we look at our budget and say, well, we still are where we were 5 years ago, well, you got to remember, travel has also gone up. Cost of living has gone up. Gas, I mean, everything, tuition. We've had a tuition or a fee increase for the most part, almost for the last 5 years that I've been here. So when you look at all that and you say, dang, we're doing well, but everything else keeps moving this direction. I am moving it, but it's also moving further. So I pride myself that we have been able to balance budgets even if we did receive CARES Act fund. I know people like to say, well, you got the CARES Act money. No, yeah, we did. But we're still only dependent from the university less than everybody in the league and less than everybody pretty much in the group of 5. So I am extremely proud of our staff figuring out how to and our coaches making it happen. We got some work to do still.
I'm pretty sure every athletic administrator in the country has their own vision board for some project maybe that's just out of reach. They need extra financing for like a new press box in the football stadium or who knows what, chairback seating in another facility. Do you have something like that?
I do. I don't know if my staff likes to hear me say it at times, but I having a background in operations, I walk around and I probably nitpick more than anybody else in my department. I expect our department, I know we don't have the most beautiful, you go to my office right now, there's no AC or heater. I've got a little electric thing that's burnt that if I leave it on at night, this whole thing might catch fire. I say that because, listen, this isn't Taj Mahal, but my whole point is I want it to at least look the part. So we got to keep it clean. We got to be respectful. We got to do everything we can with what we have to make it right. So I'll walk around and I want to see new bubbles. Those bubbles are way past their lifespan in tennis. I want to see a new press box. And people will say, well, it's for football only. No, if we do it right, I didn't say we need suites and clubs and this and that. We can redo the club seats and actually make them more efficient and actually be able to do things that will make it more enticing for our fans. But if it's done right, we need a press box that actually can host events the right way. I mean, not have people standing on our basically on the roof to get camera footage. It's just we have to improve areas. I understand I can be here all day with my wish list. One of my desires, and I know some people won't understand this, but it's to get a nutrition center for our student athletes. Everyone in our league has one, and we don't. And I'm not asking, again, to try to build something. Let's try to do something that we can multi-use. This doesn't have to be just that, but we have to find a way to do it and do it right. And so I could be here all day telling projects, but we have to be, I'm very appreciative of what we have. We have some unbelievable facilities, but we have to continue to treat them as what they are.
Is there any movement with I know there's a talk about building a restaurant right over here in the corner. Is there anything going on with that?
We're not building a restaurant in the corner. I am, as part of the Lobo development, all the dirt that you see around here, that part we have some plans for. We're trying to work with some developers to start building out some things. You're going to start seeing some things happening closer to Gibson over the next couple of years. But we are trying to work with the university, trying to work with some of the land around us to try to get some things that will bring our fan base here, not just for events, but even maybe beyond that. You see some homes and a lot of people moving towards like Mesa del Sol and others to give them better access to some of these areas for restaurants or other things. It would be greatly desired.
One last thing, I know this
No.
has nothing to do with you, but the exit off the freeway, is there any talk about them because that's like one of the last exits off the freeway in Albuquerque that is like from 1965.
I think the city, the state, and everybody, not say state, the city, the university has heard me enough. We have to do a great job of making that corridor between the interstate and what we consider South Campus or all this area a little more desirable. You know, everything that's happening in that intersection with crime, with just, we have to be better, because that is the corridor that enters for when we bring recruits, when we bring our fan base, when we bring, and it's not just us. You're talking Isotopes, you're talking United, you're talking PBR, all state high school. The last thing you want them to see is the first representation of the city or the state of this university to be something that's just not at our level of expectation. So I'm pushing extremely hard in the groups that we can to try to make sure that the emphasis is to really make both of these corridors on Gibson as well as Avenida Cesar Chavez much more desirable and friendly for our fans and everyone else, so they can go from one event to another and bounce from one to another without having to worry about, you know, the how fast the cars are going in the street. We pay quite a bit of money to have police officers there at those intersections so that nothing happens, and it's still kind of concerning at times. So they do an unbelievable job for us, but it's also making sure that everything else kind of plays into it.
I know we're running up into the hour mark. Is everyone's battery okay?
Keep coming. Keep it coming. I know, again, I hit on most of the stuff on the government relations or the legislative cycle. I know they're in a special session right now. Hoping that, you know, athletics favors well with anything that maybe exists up there. I don't know, but we'll always, I just hope we come out on the right side usually. But I will say this, this session was, even though it was short and fierce, the governor, her staff, the legislators that I had an opportunity to interact with were truly unbelievable. And a lot of that, it goes back to relationships that we've been able to build and showing the proofs in the pudding. You know, we're doing things the right way. We're managing our budget. We're increasing our fundraising. I told them when I first arrived here, my goal was to make sure that everybody understood that this wasn't going to be a request that I was going to ask just the university, just the state. It was everybody, all hands on deck. This is a village approach, and our donors have really stepped up. Our university has, our state has, and we got to do some more. But you know, it's going to be continuing to do what we can on the courts and on the fields, and making sure we win and win well.
And you had a couple of questions about mental health.
Yep.
What have you seen in the time that you've been here as far as improvements, and what do you see lacking?
Well, I don't know if lacking is a word I would use, first of all. When I arrived here years before, they removed the nutritionist and the athletic psychologist because financial cuts that it needed. And they just depended on the university for some assistance in those areas. What we've done over the last 5 years is, and it's really been probably the first couple of years that we really implemented it, but now you're starting to see reap the rewards in some respects. We're partnered with UNMH. And what that means is truly working with them, with their department, with their leadership to give us the resources needed. Now, I say that at the same time as probably everyone in the country has had some kind of mental challenge during COVID. Students, I mean, you see the high school students going through this. You see, I mean, business, just people in general. And so mental health is probably at an all-time high right now, where there needs to be more invested across the board. And I think you've heard the governor and others say that we need to do a better job investing in mental health. One of the requests that we asked for, and is one of the junior money, is for more funds to assist in this area. Are we where we need to be? I don't know if anybody's where they need to be, because we want to make sure that we're in a great situation. And I can tell you this, we are all doing everything we could possibly can to put our student athletes, and if we know they need it, if they ask, I don't care if it's drug, just schoolwork, if it's whatever kind of help they need, we want to be able to provide them. And so We've been able to invest quite a bit. Our donors stepped up tremendously my first 2 years, and we generated probably a couple $100,000 at least to help supplement a budget that I had nothing for mental health. When I first arrived here, there was not a single penny for mental health. Today, there's a budget now. There's a line item that's specific towards that. And if the state can help assist with us, that's part of it. And when I go speak at the state legislature, I don't speak for Eddie Nuñez or just the University of New Mexico. I'm speaking for all college athletes. So they know when I go in there, I'm not talking just about UNM. I'm talking about Western, Eastern, New Mexico State, anybody else that has student athletes, because I know we're not a singular situation here. They're all dealing with it. We are as well. So my request usually is, look, we need to help everyone where we can. Do we need more funds than the next person? That's not for me. I can tell you what I need, and they'll have to tell you what they need. But I will continue to fight every day to give our student athletes the best ability, the best resources, the best help for that, as well as anything else.
If they need help and coaches not around, they can go to the UNH.
They don't. No, we have. They'll go to the trainer or their coach and just say, "Hey, can I see somebody?" They come me. They could see me. They could see anyone in our athletic department has been given the ability to help direct them where they need to go. And we have a point person, actually, Bob Waller, one of the additional, besides being probably the unsung hero of the year when it came to COVID for this department and all our student athletes, he took over the communication between the mental health specialist and that group. So anytime anything's necessary, he's the one that's actually coordinating with them and scheduling an appointment as soon as possible. We do wellness checks. We do, everything you can ever imagine is there's a template now for that allows us to at least give us some success.
When did they cut the sports and colleges?
I think it was a year before I arrived here, so probably 15, 16-ish, around there. 16, yeah. What else?
When you guys cut men's soccer, was Title IX a factor back then?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you want to go? I got the whole. It's all still online. I think there's a link. It'll give you the whole description. Title IX was a strong reason why the decision was made.
So is there any chance that men's soccer could come back?
The other side of that was the budget. And as you heard before, I don't have the funds to support 18 programs fully. Adding another program, men's soccer won't be the first one that I would be able to add. And I've told this to others. I would have to add one, possibly two women's sports to be able to add a sport like men's soccer because of the numbers associated with the roster. So you're adding three sports that are all very costly. And one of the things that I think has been a detriment is people adding sports with not having the funding associated or necessary to have success or sustain them. And that's what beach volleyball was. The reason beach volleyball is no longer here is because there was never a budget associated with it. They basically took the regular volleyball budget and cut it in half. So now you've made both programs not capable of sustaining itself. So if you're going to add a sport, you have to be able to put all the resources in play. And it's a considerable number. And again, all that information is on that link. I think it's on our website. You're welcome to go take a peek at it. It's thousands and thousands of documents and pages. I put literally after I finished everything, we just uploaded it all. So yeah.